3 rolls on the tower. Each number corresponds to a random question, and whatever you roll, that's what we start with.
Great, okay.
3 is taking it home. I love this question. Do you remember the very first time that you took a movie home with you? Like the first time you needed a toy from a movie, wanted to dress up as a character for Halloween, something like that.
Oh, that is such a good question. You know what? This is going to be a crazy answer, especially coming from me, but I remember seeing The Hunger Games for the first time. I was very young, and it was the movie that I think stuck with me for the rest of that year. Like I dressed up as Katniss for Halloween, and I read the books, and I think that was a very young Katie really appreciated that experience.
I love that answer. Have you read the new book?
I haven't yet, no.
So good. I'm so excited for that movie. It's gonna be good.
I know. I've been looking at the casting coming out, and I'm like on the edge of my seat.
I always get so nervous with the Hunger Games and prequel stories, because after all that they went through, I'm like, well, why would I want to go back and experience, the darker days of the Hunger Games? But Sunrise on the Reaping and, oh my God, I can't believe the name of the other one's escaping me right now. But the one that is the 10th Hunger Games. The one where Rachel Zegler was just in the movie.
Oh,
Ballad of Song, Birds and Snakes.
No, Bird Song.
Both were really good.
Dude, yeah, I mean, yeah, you want to go back. I know, it's such an impressive franchise.
I love that. I love that story, love that franchise. All right, second roll in the tower.
All right.
Number 2 is scene swap. I love this question. If you could swap roles with anybody in Ginny and Georgia just to play one specific scene of theirs, who would you choose and why?
Oh, easy. I think Brianne Howey's Georgia, for sure. Just she's so charismatic and so charming, and she's got the whole femme fatale thing. And I guess from this season I would want to do... She did that laughing scene. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. We talked about that.
Unhinged, and I would pale in comparison, but I feel like that was an actor's, it would be so fun.
I feel like I might spoil a question by asking this, but this has to be the follow-up question because we do talk about this every once in a while. The question, we always call it everyday things. What is the seemingly small everyday thing that a human being does that is the most difficult to replicate believably on set? And that's when the laughing scene came up with her, because laughing is a challenge to make believable.
You know what? I always thought that was a personal thing for me, because I find it very hard to show joy, feign joy sometimes as an actor, and laughing is definitely one of them too. But yeah, I was thinking about this recently, and I was kind of playing around with lying, because there's so many different types of lying and so many different types of liars, and if you're really good at playing someone who's good at lying while letting the audience still know that you're lying, it can be such a nuanced thing, and it can be tricky sometimes.
Such a good answer that I've never gotten. I mean, there's many things about acting that fascinates me, but whenever you're able to do a scene one way but be conveying 2 things at the same time, my brain can't compute how you do that.
Your face isn't showing the feeling, and that's also something that Brianne does on the show almost constantly. She's tasked with playing lying, and she does it so well. And just any performer that can do that so consistently well is flowers.
Character keeps me on my toes so much. All right, third and final roll on the tower.
All right.
Oh, you got meaty acting question now. This is favorite, least favorite. I want your single favorite part of the acting process, like meeting your co-stars, putting your costume on, anything you want, but then also not necessarily your least favorite, but just a part of the process where you still see room to grow for yourself and you're excited to tackle it.
Ooh, that is a meaty one. I think my favorite part about acting is definitely fleshing out the character and coming up with a backstory and making a playlist for them, and journaling is something I like doing too, and just kind of falling in love with this new personality of yours that you're taking on for a little while, And I'll do the whole Pinterest board thing and everything, and it's still fun for me, and I love that.
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of good backstory questions to ask you. I'm such a nerd for that kind of stuff.
Sure. And then hardships, is that the...
I mean, just to make it nice and neat, it's called favorite, least favorite, but I have a hard time putting a negative spin on anything, so I always have to make it positive. So it's just part of the process where you see room to grow for yourself.
Okay, yeah, there's definitely a bunch of those, actually. I feel like a good answer is probably the pressure, dealing with the pressure and feeling like you're not amounting to what you kind of were hoping, just feeling like you're not good enough. And there's a lot of that, especially when you're on set and it's moving very quickly and you just kind of have to get the day. There's just a lot of dealt, which I've been working on. And I think it's always going to be a little bit of a thing when you care so much, but yeah.
I always tell myself that every time I judge my own work. I'm like, if you weren't that hard on yourself, it's because you didn't care. And if you don't care, why are you still here?
Yeah.
When you're on set and you're doing a tough scene, who's the first person you look to for that kind of validation? Like, is there any particular person where, like, when you see them nodding, like, you know to your core that you've just crushed it?
You know what? I think working with Felix is always such a treat because he is so complimentary, and he takes nothing lightly. Like, he won't compliment you unless he's, like, really, really moved, and there have been a couple of times where he's made me feel like, okay, I feel good. Tony's like that too. Tony is always very appreciative of how much we lend ourselves to to a day on set.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Ladies Night. I got Katie Douglas here to celebrate not one but two things. We're going to talk a lot of Ginny and Georgia. I want to break down quite a bit of season 3, and also we're going to celebrate all the success that Clown and Cornfield just had. Huge theatrical release. Congratulations, times 2.
Thank you. Lots to talk about.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, or personal experience you had that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
I feel like I always kind of knew that that's where I could lend myself. Like, I remember being a really, really young child and feeling more connected to movies than the people in my life. And I have a pretty visceral memory of kind of zeroing in on River Phoenix after watching Stand By Me for the first time. And just trying to understand, like, what is that gravitas and why am I connecting so much to what that performer is doing? And I think through him, I found, like, Gus Van Sant's movies, My Own Private Idaho, and then I think that's when I realized that I was really attracted to very complicated, flawed characters. Like, after that, it was, like, a lot of the Jack Nicholsons and the David Thewlises, and I just feel like Angelina Jolie from Girl Interrupted is such a universally, like, praised first watch for, like, female actresses. But yeah, I was really kind of interested in picking apart those types of characters, and, like, I didn't understand them, but I wanted to. So, I knew really young that was kind of the type of character that I wanted to play.
Ooh, what a good way in.
And then I went on to do my first Care Bears commercial.
First Care Bears commercial.
Yeah.
What was that commercial? Care Bears still, like, a thing?
When I was 6, it was, yeah.
Huh. I always thought, like, they were more, like, 80s.
I know.
I don't know.
It's been a minute.
maybe I'm, like, dating too many people out there or something.
It's funny. I have it, too. I have the clip.
That's something that you cherish.
A memory.
Yeah. So they're the performances, the characters, the people that inspired you. Do you remember the very first thing you did that made you kind of stop and say to yourself, like, this is a dream that is worth pursuing? Like, I have the ability to turn this into, not just a hobby and a passion, but a career for myself.
Kind of, yeah. I started so young, so there were so many moments where I just felt so much more creatively stimulated, like, at work than I did at school. And I think it was probably by the time I was about 13, I was doing a show called Defiance where I had alien makeup on, and we had a lot of stunt training and really long days, and I was loving it still. Like, I was happier kind of in a testy kind of environment like that. So I think it was just kind of falling in, just knowing that, despite how hard things can get, I still am having fun.
You were so young when you first started, so I'm curious to hear your answer to this, like, also as it pertains to having family support. When you got, like, a role like that in your first other gigs, at the time, what did you think was step one to breaking in as an actor? And now looking back, having done it, would you recommend that first step to another aspiring actor out there, or did you and your family find, like, a better way in along the way?
Oh, it's so funny. I don't even know if I would say I've, like,
oh, stop that.
But I actually don't remember thinking like that when I was younger. I've always kind of been more character based when it comes to taking roles, and I've been so lucky in that I've had the chance to like play some really interesting characters, and a lot of that just comes from, I think, when you get in a room and you start reading with somebody and you've met your match, and the filmmaker is kind of connecting to you, and it really has nothing to do with, sometimes it really has nothing to do with how good you are. It's just like whether or not it's a good fit for the role. And man, if I were to recommend anything to a young actor or actress who is starting out, I would say just hold on to the thing that you originally found to be meaningful, and that will be the thing that kind of carries you through.
Ooh, I'll follow up on that because, in this industry, when you're an actor and in other roles on films and shows, you have a team around you. And that team is there to advise you and push you in the best possible direction. And their intentions are always good. But has there ever been a time when you were encouraged to do something and, I don't know, it just didn't like hit your heart the way that you needed, and you had to be like, no, I think the other way is the better way for me?
So many times, yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't until like very, very recently that I actually felt confident enough to have a voice to say, no, I don't think this is for me. But to answer your question, yeah, there's been a couple times where I just didn't feel passionate about it, and I just couldn't give myself to it, so I would walk away from it.
To veer back towards specific projects, do you remember the first time you felt the power of your own voice on a set, where you were able to speak up, your voice was heard, and something either, on camera or behind the scenes changed for the better because of it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I feel like that's still so fresh. I just having the and the thing is, too, I think it's, if you ask, the majority of filmmakers want to collaborate with you. It's just having the confidence to be able to use your voice. But I would say it was very recent. It was like a good example. Clown in a Cornfield, I was lucky enough to have a lot of say over what my character looked like, and Eli Craig, our director, was constantly checking in with me about kind of what I thought. So that was definitely one of the more hands-on projects that I've done recently.
He's the coolest.
He's really cool.
He just knew exactly what to do with that story, and the fact that he trusted your instincts with the character, just spot on.
All of
I
us.
love that. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I want to go back to one of your early. You brought up Defiance, and then I was reading a little bit about Spooksville. That was your first time being a series regular on a show?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
I think I wrote down you were about 15 at the time. You had done a few things before that, though. So when you jumped on that set, how ready were you for the reality of being a series regular on a show?
I don't think I knew what to expect. I think I, at that age, still had so much, I was still so excited, and I still had so much, personality. I look at clips from that. I still get kind of, tagged in old videos, and I'm so young, but I just remember I was so... I had such an ego at that age, and I don't know what happened to her. I don't know where that went, but at that time, I think I was just really, I was still super excited. Didn't prepare much. Probably should have. That was back when series were 24 episodes per season. So I was there for a pretty long time, but I remember it all being pretty easy to adapt. It was just like going to school by the end of it, or summer camp.
I just think about what I was doing at that age, and I'm like, I should not have been let anywhere near some sort of professional environment, filmmaking or anything else. I was just running around being an asshole. I'm curious your answer to this question, because I've had a lot of people on the show who started at a really young age, and then they've explained that they hit that point where, when you're a child actor on a set, sometimes it could feel, I guess, a little like a routine. You're essentially, doing what you're told. And then all of a sudden you do realize the power of your voice. So do you remember the very first time that you recognized you were being heard as an adult on set? Your input was being taken in a different way?
I actually do have an answer for that. Yeah, it would have been Level 16 on Danishka Esterhazy's set. That was my first, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, lead role in a feature film. And it was a mostly female crew and cast, which was new for me and like very important for me. And Danishka is somebody who is just sets a tone on her sets with just professionalism and grace, and she's very smart and she's very actor oriented, and she made me feel like I was more than just like her actor. Like I was a peer and a collaborator, and that was definitely the first time.
It's a Fantastic Fest film.
Right?
Got to go back to Fantastic Fest.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I got to veer into the lifetime of it all.
Okay.
And like the first time we spoke, I wasn't even fully aware, because I believe I even called Clown in a Cornfield your Clown in Your Corn. That sounds so wrong. I'm never going to say that again.
I know, there's so many.
But I think I called it your first time headlining a feature film. And I guess maybe it still applies in terms of like first time headlining a feature film that got a wide theatrical release.
You know what?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different caliber. And it did feel that way, though.
But still, like, then I started to do my research. Like, you've headlined quite a few things. So the first one I'm going to touch on here is Believe Me. When you do something like that, how does your process change when you're prepping to play a real person, especially when, you know, the material is so heavy?
That was a real thing. Yeah, that was my first time doing that. And going into it, I remember being really afraid of disappointing Lisa, who is still very much doing very well. And I knew she was going to see it, and I actually knew she was going to be a part of the project too. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood and I was telling her story from an accurate place, an empowering place, and also like a really truthful place, you know, because what happened, and that is why we tell these stories. So I, for the most part, was just trying to, it's about empathy at the end of the day, and I just really just made it a point to empathize with Lisa's story.
So you do that one, and the next one was The Girl Who Escaped. And I feel like there are some similarities, but they're two very different stories that offer you different opportunities as an actor. So when you make one like Believe Me, where it is so heavy and such high pressure, how do you leave that and then say to yourself, like, I need to have more of those feelings on set? But then also, can you tell me something about The Girl Who Escaped that you thought would, you know, like stretch your muscles as an actor in a new way?
Yeah, well, that was Believe Me was my first time doing a role like that, and I don't think I learned how to leave it on set at that point. I was 19, I think. So that was a really good learning experience because that is a real thing. Things do kind of follow you home, and especially when the content is so upsetting and you've created memories for yourself that live in that world, and it, you know, there are ways that you can do it in a way that's still healthy for you. And going into the Kara Robinson movie, I had learned that already. So we kind of had all the right conversations about what we were going to show and how we were going to show it and how we were going to present Kara. And it all just, you know, when it comes down to it, the point of telling the story is it's an empowering story. So we led with a lot more optimism, and like it was coming from a place of hope. I think I answered your question.
You did. That answer was making me think of a question I used to ask all the time that I haven't in a while, but it's an important thing to highlight. Now, what do you do to practice self-care on set, especially when you're diving into heavier material that you know ultimately you'll have to come out of after the fact?
Yeah, it changes a lot. A lot of the time, you kind of have to. I think it's really important to laugh on set and to set a tone that is like, we're there to have fun. We work in the entertainment industry, and it can be really heavy sometimes. So just making sure that you are still cracking jokes and you're treating everybody with the same amount of respect, and it's just a really good environment is like everything. Otherwise, it's really easy to kind of lock yourself into your own mind and just work from within yourself. But it's a collaborative job, so that definitely helps. Going home and just watching a movie that is like not horrendous is awesome.
Do you have a go-to? Or a go-to show to binge?
Oh my! Well, right now I actually just started watching Girls for the first time. So if I was working, I think it would be Girls.
Literally right before this was the Allison Williams ladies night. I swear to God, it was meant to be.
Yeah. It's always different. You know, there's like Fleabag. Just something.
You're watching the right stuff.
I hope so.
I feel like you are.
Taking recommendations still.
the last conversation we had when you were rattling off all your horror favorites. I'm like, yes.
I feel like we've had that conversation.
Your inspirations right now.
Yeah.
Stand By Me is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, yeah.
Can I put you on the spot? What are your favorite movies of all time?
That
give me
is
top,
on the spot,
top 3.
and that's so mean. I feel like top 3. Well, okay, I just rewatched The Science of Sleep the other day.
Ooh.
It's been a minute, and I had such a reaction to it because I haven't been sleeping, as you can probably tell.
I was the one who came in chugging an energy drink.
Yeah, for real. I would put that one up there. I'm a big. I like Mike Leigh movies, so Naked's up there as well. I would categorize that as a horror movie, but I think I'd put Naked up there along with, maybe a light one. Oh, Raising Arizona.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to be lighter. There's a movie called Consuming Spirits. It's an animated.
Ooh,
it's
that
like
I've never seen.
It's really interesting if you are interested in like mixed media animation. It's I've never seen anything like it before, and even like the voice work is really cool. So I'd recommend that.
I love getting homework.
The
next time I see you, I will have watched that.
I think it's on Criterion.
I love it. All right, so now we're up to Clown in a Cornfield on my list here, and like I just said before, I kind of misspoke last time when I'm like, that's your first time headlining. But it is your first time headlining a movie that ultimately got a wide release and now ultimately was very, very successful. So hey, what did the response mean to you? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think the response is everything to us just because, we're making the movie for horror fans and I will say they're not hard to please. Like they have a very insatiable appetite and
can confirm.
Yeah, for real. And it was just really nice to know that we were speaking to the right people and we had fun doing it and people had fun watching it. So it's just very rewarding.
Insatiable appetite. But I will also say when something clicks with the horror community, like they don't give you that badge of honor easily. Like it means something.
It does. It means a lot to them.
It means something. Could you feel that set being different when you were there, that ultimately it was going to be like a wide release horror movie versus some of the other things that you've made that got different types of releases?
Kind of, a little bit. I don't know if many people know this, but it was an indie film. Like we had a pretty small set, pretty small budget, and the most lovely, I can't express this enough, like the most lovely casting crew I've ever worked with. So we just had a lot of fun, and that just how hands-on it was so different from anything I worked on before. And also we used a lot of practical effects that were successful. Like they looked real and good. So it did feel different in a lot of ways. That was my first explosion, I think.
Ooh.
I got to see live.
That's so cool. Of all of the things that you did practically, can you give me an example of something that made you think, like, I cannot believe that is what we have to do to make it look like that on screen in the finished product?
Ooh. One of my favorites was, I don't mean to spoil anything, but
You could spoiler warning for Clown in a Cornfield at this point. I feel like everybody watching this has probably seen it because I keep laughing about it.
I get to murder Will Sasso with a cattle prod by sticking it into his face, and that was all practical effects. So we had like lights in his mouth, and then we had eye drops in his eyes, and he took a hit from a vape before we called action, and just
smartest thing ever. Yeah. That's like it's such a good tool to have for that kind of effect. Yeah, he's so good in that role too.
So funny,
jeez.
Eli has a really good habit of like hiring really funny comedians and putting them in like pretty dark, serious roles, and it just works.
And the loveliest people. Like Kevin Durand is one of my favorites. He's just got the best energy.
I've never met anybody just so kind.
Yeah.
They're so sweethearts.
So kind and so happy.
For real.
I love it. Ginny and Georgia, oh boy. Here's where the interrogation begins. Actually, not an interrogation yet. When I get to the season 3 stuff and we start spoiling stuff, that's when my questions get very specific.
Love it.
Going back to the very beginning, though, I wanted to start with the audition process for this because I think this is true of literally every single person in the ensemble. Like, I can't see any other actor on this planet playing those roles the way that you do. So when you get your first sides for Abby, what is the first thing you see in the character that makes you feel to your core like yes, like we are the perfect fit for each other?
Oh, it's so funny. The first time I read Abby on paper, I saw in her somebody that I actually went to high school with who was such a menace to society. And also it was so it was so exciting when she wanted to be your friend. Like, she was such a complicated character, and she was, deep down when you really get to know her, like a very kind of broken person, but she was just so interesting to me. And I saw that in the Abby character, and I just felt, I read for a couple other characters as well, and Abby was the one that just felt like, okay, no, this is what I do. This is what I like to do. I didn't really know the extent to which they were going to explore her story. That was a surprise.
Oh, I'm going to dig into that in a moment. But first, I have to follow up. What other characters did you read for? And can you maybe tell me the one that you read for that is most different from how they turned out to be in the show?
Sure, yeah. No, I think they were just, trying out everybody in Toronto. And I did Max. I think Max and Sam were the two that I...
It's just crazy to me how I can't see these roles any other way.
No, imagine.
So taking a step further into the experience now, so you already kind of like see things that you'll be able to connect to in Abby, but I love asking this question about like getting on set and starting to work on someone. So you start a new character and sometimes you're on unstable ground, but then you do that thing and it feels like you kind of have an aha moment. Did you have that with Abby early on, and if so, when?
You know what? I think a lot of that came from the ensemble. I think just when we were all kind of together for the first time, and we were just able to really lend ourselves to being goofy and being, representing a contemporary high school relationship. That's when I think everything just started to feel really easy and just right.
You guys are so perfect together. Do you remember the very first time that you were either on set or perhaps in prep and you looked at the three of them and you're like, yeah, we're the perfect quartet to play Mang?
That might have been the chemistry read. That was the first time I met Sarah and Chelsea, and we got coffee beforehand, and I think we just started running lines, and each one of them have very unique personalities, and it just fit super well.
Do fit so well. So the next kind of layer I want to add to her, because one thing that I love asking in general is how much of your character you could find through a scene partner and their character. And the particular one that I zero in on with that is how Ginny impacts her, because at the very start of the show, Abby's like, don't want you a part of our friend group. And then all of a sudden, the two of them have like this spark and form their own unique connection to one another. So what's something about Antonia as a scene partner and Ginny as a character that helped you unearth a new layer in Abby?
Yeah, good question. So Abby's North Star is like avoidance, suppressing emotions, and then she loves her friends, which those can be really contradicting things sometimes. And Antonia's character is a little bit similar. I think they have like a lot in common. So I think when they kind of bonded over that need to like, they have a hard exterior. And I think it's comforting to be able to look somebody else in the eyes that can understand you in a way that not a lot of people can. It's just lighter and easy.
Before I veer into season 3 too much, I'm thinking about some of the stuff you had said earlier that I wanted to follow up on. Can you tell me what's on the Abby playlist?
Oh my God, yeah, the Abby playlist. So I'm playing a teenager, and I'm not a teenager. So I was kind of going through. I still think her playlist would be a little bit refined, but in a little bit like sad girlcore. So I was thinking like Billie Eilish at the time, Phoebe Bridgers is on there for sure, and then like MGMT.
Oh, I could see that.
And now, if I were to do it for season 3, there would be some probably Tate McRae, Sabrina Carpenter mixed in there as well. But that is the thing. She's like a young person still, which is crazy to think about.
They are so young.
They're really young.
They're so young, and they're going through such complex stuff.
I know, and I was definitely listening to different stuff when I was in high school.
What were you listening to?
I remember hitting my Nirvana phase at like 14. And kind of like, I rode that out until university. So it was like Bright Eyes. I remember I'd sit on the train, and I'd have like a water bottle, and I'd pretend it was a flask, and I'd listen to Bright Eyes when I was going home. And there was a lot of, oh my God, there was like, yeah, Nirvana and Bright Eyes. I don't want to think about high school.
feel like my whole high school playlist was anyone showing up at Warped Tour.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that with someone. Like, I wouldn't last at Warped Tour for like 5 minutes anymore.
No.
I'd have to go home and sit down. Two other things you had brought up earlier. Oh, it was backstory and journaling. I'll do backstory first. Even if it's not canon, like part of the show, can you tell me something you developed on your own for Abby's backstory that maybe we don't necessarily see or hear directly in Ginny and Georgia, but we could still feel kind of informing your performance and you carrying with you as an actor?
Totally, yeah. I feel like a lot of Abby's kind of, she has a hard exterior, and I think a lot of her uglier traits, I just always imagine they were born at home. So she's got these 2 therapist parents that never got along, and I'm really obsessed with the idea of a very broken child with 2 therapist parents. But I've imagined that there was a lot of like weaponized therapy being used at home, making it very easy for Abby to distrust feelings and self-help and emotions. So as the adults at home were acting like children, she just kind of turned into this sardonic stone of a person.
It's like I could see it, and I knew all that was there. But when I hear someone articulate it so specifically, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
just like gut punch right there. And then the other thing was the journaling, and I kind of want to compare it to the playlist thing because you just told me how the playlist evolved. What do you think is the biggest difference between maybe how you were journaling for her in season 1 and what you were writing about versus how you were doing it and what you were writing about in season 3?
That's such a good question. I remember journaling for Abby season 1, and it was very surface level. It was very kind of, what's the word for it? She was kind of catty and like loved her friends, but in a way that she was very like it's easier for her to tease than to be affectionate, and she just had like a teenage edge to her. Whereas now, I just feel like she's so much more fleshed out in that she's aware that she needs help and she's facing that a little bit more. And I think she's in the early stages of, she's on a romantic journey for the first time ever. So I think feelings are becoming a little bit easier for Abby. And this year, when I was kind of trying to exercise what that would feel like for somebody who has only ever used intimacy in a way that is performative or kind of a form of self-harm, just kind of what that would look like on paper and what the slow burn and the buildup of coming to terms with the fact that like you're learning how to love and you're learning who you love and you are only a teenager.
They're only teenagers.
They're only teenagers, yeah.
I'm so excited to dig into all that. But before I get too specific here, I did want to ask a broader cast question because I'm like such a nerd for acting techniques. I asked this to Brianne the other day, but your character is operating in a different zone, so the answer is probably going to be different. Can you tell me the 2 actors in the ensemble with like the most polar opposite approaches to their work, where when you're their primary scene partner, you'll have a different acting experience?
You know what? I feel like Felix and the Baker twins have a really...
She started there, but then went into like the Joe, Zion, and Paul of it all. But I wanted to follow up and hear more about that.
Yeah, I feel like Sarah and Felix have a very, very opposite approach, and they're both like just as effective. So that's always been really fascinating. And then to that, I feel like Brianne and Tony also might be a little bit different in their approach too. Which is just like, it's so funny because Felix is somebody who will really cares and like really thinks about everything that his character is feeling and will feel it all the way up until action. And Sarah will be able to crack a joke a second before action and still be able to just drop right into it. And it is a very different dynamic, but both as inspiring and effective.
I find both incredible.
It's
like
insane, right?
I can't compute how someone can like turn it on and off so fast, but I also can't compute how someone can, sit in that and carry that around with them for so long before they have to go.
Yeah.
Turning the technique question towards you briefly, can you tell me something you've been doing to prepare for scenes as Abby since day one that you're still doing now, but then also something about the situation she finds herself in season 3 that called for something different?
a lot of with Abby, it's a lot of they all have very specific personalities and very specific tones, and we have our own. For me, it was always just kind of setting a tone for like what my character represented and how we play off of each other dynamically. But now I just feel like Abby, there's a big theme of loneliness in this season, so I feel like it's become a lot more like about the internal stuff and like not showing the thing that you're really feeling, even though you're feeling pretty hard.
I feel everything that she feels. My heart for her. All right, I'm going to get into the specific stuff now. The first thing I wanted to start with was her relationship with her parents, and this is like one of my favorite scenes of yours the entire season. It's episode 3. It's when Abby comes home drunk and has that argument with her mom. I kind of want to hear about doing that entire scene, but the specific beat that I'm really curious about finding like the right tone and timing for is when her mom leaves and she goes shit, and I could see so quickly that she was just like spewing all this anger and then immediately knew how much she just hurt her and just crumbles because of it.
Yeah. That was something that I had to try to figure out, because Abby, she is a very flawed character, and she can be really aggressive sometimes with her emotions, but at the reason she's like that is because she is an avoidant personality type, and which means she doesn't like confrontation, which means the confrontation hasn't happened yet, which leads to resentment and projecting. So it either like all comes out at once and in one violent kind of verbal tsunami, or it just becomes like a slow burn of microaggressions, and you see her do that a lot in this season, especially by the end of it too. And it's just a result of not knowing how to communicate yet. So I just wanted to make sure that the audience was still aware that she doesn't want to hurt her mom. It's just been a buildup of so much emotion.
It was so effective. It's so effective and so well delivered. And I have to imagine something like that is so relatable, because who hasn't like lost their shit in a moment and then immediately after felt like how terrible what they just did or said was.
Yeah, well, I think that's why a lot of people relate to how Abby's written, and it's definitely why I do.
So that was one specific scene. Now I kind of want to focus on crafting the relationship with her mother compared to her father. What specific goals did you have to ensure that they felt like they would have been a unit together at one point, but that her dad's relationship with her was ultimately something very different?
Yeah, it's funny. Moms have it so hard, man, and I think that is also a theme in Ginny and Georgia. We have a lot of really interesting female relationships, and sometimes when we're trying to communicate that, we use, for example, like a bad example, and I think with Abby's mom, she sees so much more of her. More of her and more of herself in her, so I think she's on the receiving end of a lot more judgment, whereas Dad felt like he was someone who was always really easy on Abby and was always very he was funny with her and was someone that she really kind of appreciated having around, because he had the same type of sense of humor as her, and that's why it's hard when Dad leaves and now she's just stuck with Mom. And being in high school and your relationship with your mom in high school is so layered.
I'm just thinking about like how difficult it was for like that season 3 conversation to end between the two of them, and then jumping to episode 8 where they're able to get out, but like with a joke.
Yeah.
And like Mom doesn't get that. Yeah. That's a dad thing.
Yeah, totally.
And I get that thinking. All right, I'm going to go towards the Samantha of it all now.
Yes.
What a fascinating situation. And I will apologize in advance. This question I jotted down is incredibly convoluted, because what's going on there is kind of connected to so many different things. What was it like for you? And I know some of this comes from the writing, but what was it like, I guess, charting the course for how Abby feels about Samantha struggling with her own body image issues, like basically starting with like offering her a piece of gum and then how that winds up evolving when she tries to share something with her and it winds up culminating in that kiss that shouldn't have happened.
Completely sidetracking the storyline, yeah.
It's just like it's so many things in one. So I guess what was it like figuring out the starting point for how she felt, what felt true to her in terms of how to process something like that coming from someone else and how that changes when that incident happens?
Yeah, well, I think that's the first time Abby hasn't felt alone with the thing, and I don't even think she knows the extent to how much she's hurting herself, but it's easier to watch somebody else struggling and have empathy than it is to, like, have empathy for yourself. So I think she sees it for the first time and starts to feel a little bit less alone with it. Which I think Samantha takes in a very different way and assumes it's something else. But I love that scene so much because I remember reading it on the page and just being so excited because it's kind of part of why I love Sarah Lampert's writing so much, is because she's not afraid to, like, turn over stones and talk about, like, really kind of awkward, funny things. And it just plays on the theme of something happened in my friend's basement. Something weird happened in my friend's basement, and it fundamentally changed me. And that's what that scene kind of represented to me and Romy, who plays Samantha, who's in real life cooler than all of us. She's really good at that character. But
very good in that role. Well, what do you think it is about, like, Abby's current headspace that makes her so willing to tell deeply personal things to, I guess, ultimately the two more toxic people in her life, between sharing the tape with Samantha there, and I think it was in episode 1 when she just, like, flat out tells press what she's been doing, and she has all these loving, supportive people around her, but those are the two that she shares her secrets with.
Yeah, the stakes are pretty low with those people. It's honestly, I think that's what she thinks she deserves.
Oh. My heart for her, jeez. I'm going into episode 8 now. Oh, this scene is also just something else. It's Abby, Nora, and Ginny, where they. This is going to be a super convoluted question too, but it speaks to, like, how good and complex the writing is. It's when they walk in and flat out ask her, "Are you bulimic?" And it's just such an interesting and sharp way to have that conversation where there's so much, like, bluntly stating concerns, but then also veering away from it in order to, like, I guess, put someone in a more comfortable place to talk about it. So what was it like working with the two of them and feeling out that scene? So, like, you were able to like zig and zag, but it also had, like, a cohesive feel to it.
Yeah, it's the first time, she really says it to anybody. And I think Nora and Ginny's approach was they were trying to cater to how Abby would be most responsive to it and how Abby would like to be spoken to. And I think for the most part it's pretty effective in just getting her to admit it. But I'm still not really convinced that Abby understands the type of violence that does on her body. She doesn't know what type of trouble she's in, and she does the thing where she doesn't like confrontation, so she brushes it off as a joke and laughs about it and makes a sardonic comment, and then it's buried again. So it's like got a lot of unresolved problems that will later down the line lend themselves to new problems.
Yeah, I got some ending questions that pertain to that. I'll save that for the end of my little roadmap here. And again, like, everything for her is just, like, so woven together. It's hard to separate ideas. But the next thing on my list was Triss. I was just so happy that someone sees her and that she feels seen. I guess I'll start with the beginning on that. When you read those scripts and you realized where her love life was going this season, what was your first impression of that? Did you see it coming?
Yeah, you know what? It made so much sense. It was the only romantic situation that really made sense for Abby. And I was surprised because, like, I'm still learning about Abby. When I think I know her, like, I don't. Every season she's very different. And where we left off, Abby was someone who was, like, not at all considering anything romantic. She liked her friends and she had some internal stuff going on. But this one is very different. This person's very different, and they actually start bringing out really good things in Abby for the first time ever and introduce self-love. So I was actually really happy to see that and really excited to start the casting process and find the person that kind of fit that tone really well. And Noah is so good.
So perfect.
It's so cool. And, you know, we haven't really, the show just didn't have an energy like that before. And I just, you know, I really wanted that to be the one kind of sweet, good, personal thing that Abby had this year.
I'll bring back a question that I had said earlier to apply to Noah. What was the first thing that happened between the two of you, either prepping to shoot or on set, that made you say with certainty, like, you are 100% the Tris to my Abby?
Yeah, we did a lot of, I was a part of the chemistry reads while we were calling back a bunch of the different actors, and God, there's a lot of good actors out there. It was crazy. It was kind of, we were stuck for a little while, but it was just, Noah and I had the chemistry, which is really kind of hard to find. They had the coolness, the chemistry, and also just I think the vibe that I just thought was so, like, that just felt like that made sense to me, Abby. Like, I simultaneously fell in love with them.
Your instincts were spot on. It feels so right as a viewer, too.
Oh, I hope so. Undeniably.
Fills a place in my heart that I needed filled for her sake. I'm going to bring back some questions I asked Brianne now, because she went through a whole lot this season in terms of the romance in her life. So the first question that I had asked her is, what do you think at the end of season 3 is the number one thing that Abby wants out of a romantic relationship, and how does that compare to the number one thing she wanted when she first started her Ginny and Georgia journey?
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like I remember a line where Abby said, "I will never have a boyfriend. I don't want a boyfriend. You should see my family life." She was, like, super closed off from it. And now, I honestly think she's terrified, and just kind of warming up to the idea of being held emotionally by somebody else, and that's still so personal, and she's not even in the place to share it with other people outside of her most trusted immediate friends, and I just think she's warming up still.
I got questions about who she shares that with, but first, I wanted to ask this question too. It does apply a little more to Georgia, because Brianne's words, like, Georgia's a little more of a taker in romantic relationships. But I just like the thought. What do you think is the number one thing that Abby most wants to give to a romantic partner at the end of season 3?
That is such a good question. I feel like Abby wants to impress Tris, and it starts in the tutoring room when they say smart is sexy, like nerdy is cool, and for the first time ever, Abby gets an A on a test, and it feels really good, and she made them proud, and I think it's coming. You know what? And I relate to this a little bit, because when I'm in a room with Noah, my only job is to be a good person for them. They make me feel like a good person, and I think that's what Abby's experiencing. She just wants to be good to them and for them.
I love that for her. I love that for her so much. Now, we're going to get into some complicated questions, because, like, I feel bad for Max. So yeah. I'm curious your take on what's going on there, and I might have pulled some ideas from Reddit for some of these questions. But so one thing is, like, at the beginning of the show, like, Abby kind of winds up being the outcast of Mang, and it makes her feel bad. So why do you think she doesn't recognize what she's doing to Max as season 3 progresses?
Yeah, well, I think as she's discovering new relationships, she's kind of separating herself from old ones, and that was so sad, because not having the Max character in the scenes meant we didn't have Sarah Way's class on set, which is, like, set's just not as light without a Sarah Way's class. But I think it's just now that she has something to distract herself with, and she's got a new relationship. She's just kind of fading away from that one. And like I talked about before, she's got that resentment thing. She hasn't had the confrontation with Max yet about the time where she abandoned her and hurt her. So it's been building up, and it's coming out in these weird little microaggressions. And it's a really good lesson in how to not how to have a conversation before things get ugly like that. But yeah, she's definitely distracted with her kind of like her romantic story.
Why doesn't she want to share her romantic story with Max?
From what I have to tell myself, I know, because you'd think that would be the perfect person to share it with.
Yes.
What I have to tell myself is that it's because it's so much more than just a queer relationship right now. It's a very personal, real, slow burn of a thing. And she doesn't know how to talk about it yet with somebody like Max, who I think she's just very afraid to attach herself to any type of label, or she doesn't want it to be exploited for drama or for anything other than hers. It's still very much hers. And Max can be so involved, and she gives so much love and attention to her friends that I think she's still just very protective over it.
Have you read many Reddit threads?
Not yet, no.
I
can only imagine.
I feel and see what you're saying. A very hot topic of conversation is she's pushing back because ultimately they are endgame.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that. I know. Hey, you know what? People have been Abby Max since day one. And
anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
I like Triss a lot, though.
I know.
I do like Triss a lot.
I know. Hopefully they continue to bring out good things in Abby.
All right. Very, very end questions now. These two that I wrote down are more like theory type things, but I am curious your take on it. What do you think Abby would think if she knew the truth of what Georgia had done? Because she is someone who has kind of had faith in her throughout this entire thing and has been no pressure about it.
I think I've thought about this before. Because even me, Katie, I've thought about this before too. And I think if she knew the extent of it, like that there was like serial murders, I think she would say, cool. So
I could see that. I could see that.
She would be her normal sardonic self about it, obviously with a lot of questions.
The answer to this might be the exact same then. What do you think Abby would think if she found out what Ginny did to help her mom?
Now I'm doing character work in my head.
I like that.
I'm learning about Abby as we speak. I feel like if Abby knew, I just feel like, so Abby's thing, she loves and supports her friends. She goes to her friends before she goes to her family. So I have a feeling Abby would be a little too quick to get on board with it. Obviously, while putting up the proper boundaries and repressing emotions that weren't productive to her, but I think she would be pretty. She stands by her friends, for the most part, on paper.
You know her really well.
I try to. It's my job.
I feel like I can just hear it in all these answers. To lean into the opposite of that and to tease what could come in season 4, I know you probably don't know all that much at this point, but is there any like corner of Abby's world that still is mysterious to you that you're most eager to get to fill in a future season?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I still learn about Abby every time I read a new line of hers. I think I'm really excited for the conversation of why can't you be nice to happen? Like, why can't you be a nice person? And then we unpack why.
Oh, I want to see that.
Me too, I know.
I'm so curious to see that. All right, we've hit the last question of Ladies' Night. Every single one ends this way. I'm going to open it up to both Ginny and Georgia and Clown and Cornfield. So in this business, film and television, we give each other awards. That's super cool. I always think we should keep doing that, but I find that nobody tells themselves good job as much as they should. So I want to know something you accomplished on Clown in a Cornfield or Ginny and Georgia season 3 that you know you're always going to be able to look back on and say, you know what? I'm really proud of what I did there.
Oh, man, see, this is a little bit easy for our show just because I feel like I'm really proud of what we represent to our fans because we've been on the receiving end of a lot of I feel like people seem to feel very seen by a lot of our characters and by the show, and just that alone is everything. So I'm just very proud that we can be there for people, and representation is everything. So when it comes to Ginny and Georgia, that's the thing.
Definitely something to be very proud of. I'm gonna say congratulations on everything
Thank
you've
you.
accomplished on Clown in a Cornfield and Ginny and Georgia in season 3 and everything coming your way in the future. I know
you.
you'll be back on Ladies Night.
Yeah, I think I'll see
Come
you
back
really
soon. We'll talk more. I have a million more questions.
This has been lovely. I love your questions.